Hello, 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 hello. Thank you for joining us on What's Troubling You, a discussion with Chantel and Charlene. And I'm Charlene.
Oh, and I'm Chantel.
And we're here today with some wonderful, wonderful guests. Do you want to introduce your guest, Chantel?
I'll introduce our guest, Miss Jeanette Bloom, and we have Miss Letitia Smith. Miss Bloom is going to be talking about investing in life insurance, and Miss Smith is going to be talking about uh, Ryan, Dave Ramsey's baby steps. You want to go
Oh,
ahead and start off, Miss Smith?
yes, yes. Letitia, do you want to start off with sharing with us what Dave Ramsey is, and let's first kind of just recap on what financial freedom is. Let's
Yes.
get a definition on that first, because I think sometimes people think financial freedom means wealthiness, means being
Mhm.
rich, and it's not. It's not. So either one of you can share on that piece.
I'll just jump in and say thank you, ladies, just for again for this platform and just this opportunity, just to share with other people. Like we talked about last time, we just have to become stewards of what God has given us, whether it's financially, physically, whatever it is, just being good stewards. And when it comes down to being financial free, what I'm thinking about is the biblical words and biblical terms when it says the borrower is slave to the lender. I do not want to be slave to the lender and saying that I owe. Whenever God tells me I am an heir and I am the head and not the tail. And so financial freedom, from what Dave Ramsey talks about and from more important biblical talks about, is just saying, you know what, I'm free to do what God has called me to do, and finances are not holding me back, and I have to be a slave to money.
Mm-hmm. 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 Okay.
So, what does being financial, that definition, but how can I get to the point of being financially free? What are my steps I need to take?
I think that it's first of all, it starts on mindset. And for everybody that's listening, I know we always think about, hey, I don't make enough money, I don't know that I can do this, or I don't know if I can invest. And I'm sure that the other guest is going to talk about investing in and things that you can do to invest. But just when you're talking about how do I get financially free, you have to have a mindset, and you have to have the fight to say, no matter where I am in life, I am going to budget my money properly. I am going to not let my money happen to me. I'm going to tell my money where to go. And so financial freedom, whether you have debt right now, whether you have credit cards, whether you have student loans, whether you have a mortgage, it's just making your mind up to say, you know what, I am not going to just spend all my money. I'm not going to spend all my money before I have it. I'm going to tell my money where to go. And so financial freedom is having the choice and the options to say, I can steward this money. Because again, like we talked about last time, growing up, we don't really talk about money. We don't talk about what should I do with our money. We just talk, pay your bills. But what else should I do with my money? I just want to spend it. I want to buy a pair of Jordans. I want to buy the highest car that I can't afford. And so financial freedom, one step to financial freedom is just having in your mindset that I want to do better with money. That has to be the first step.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Can I just add something to what Letitia was saying?
Please, please.
When it comes to financial freedom and financial wellness, to me, I think it's a peace of mind. It's a peace of mind and it's an empowerment that you're able to live the life that you want to live and deserve, that you work so hard for. And so, because we weren't taught a lot of things like Letitia was saying and so forth, we were taught things in the past decades, let's go to school, let's get a good grades, let's get a good education, let's get that job, let's work in corporate America. And then what? And then we do this and we do this year after year after year after year. When we look back and wake up, we say, wait a minute, I've been doing this for 10, 15 years. And am I living better? Am I doing better? If I'm preparing for the future, am I securing my income for my loved ones if something unfortunate happens? Am I doing those things that we need? Or am I just in so much debt, in that debt cycle, that we work every day and we work hard at what we do, and yet we're paying off bills and we're paying off debt, and nobody's really teaching us and showing us how we need to diverse that money and split that money up, and how we need to do and what we need to do for the immediate and for the short term and then for the long term. So when it comes to financial wellness, it's just being at a peace of mind in life to live where we think, or how we think we deserve to live.
I can attest to that for my own self, because I mentioned on our last episode that I'm debt free now, and I didn't even realize, because I do follow Dave Ramsey, and I didn't even realize where I was in the baby steps to Letitia told me, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't realize I had gotten that far up, in the process. And I think it becomes, the freedom part comes because I am no longer held hostage by something. And honestly, because I've been debt free before and it didn't last. And it didn't last because I picked up the old habits that I had before, like using my credit card, using my whatever, and buying cars and not paying them off. And well, I paid them off eventually, but I accumulated more debt on top of that, and I've just decided at this point in my life that I wanted to just be free. And I think that's what you're saying, Jeanette, just to be free in my mind, to be free. And I think before I move now, I think before I do everything now. I don't just move and do stuff like I used to, because I had the money before. I mean, I still have the money, but I had the money before. And what I would do is I would use that money. I would spend it on cars. I would spend it on bags. I have a bag fetish. I do. I love bags. And so, but I haven't bought one in a while, thank goodness. But I used to be real big on that. And, some things that don't hold value. Now, mind you, my bags do hold value, but they don't put food in my mouth and they don't put a covering over my head. And they do not supply me when I'm older, except for a look, not a lifestyle, okay, not to live. And so when I was younger, I didn't know any better. So now that I'm older, I do know better. But I think a lot of times, I've heard other people say this too, that they want to get out of debt, but it's a mindset. It gets you so caught in you don't even be thinking you're spending and you're doing it. You just think, well, I have this and I can do this, and I think a lot of times people don't think, that how I need to think my way through this, how I need to plan my way through this. So I'm glad you guys are here again, because that conversation was so in need of last time, and just being able to talk. And so we want to talk today about, and I don't want to go ahead, Chantel, so let me know if I'm too far ahead. I know we want to talk, we had a specific focus today to allow us, Letitia, to talk about Dave Ramsey, the steps and the process of getting debt free. And then really honing in at the end to talk about, with Jeanette, to talk about those areas we need to begin to invest in. Because again, the money just sitting there.
Right.
It does nothing. Okay. And I got it. I got that piece. I finally got it. So I know people will save, and I know the feeling of the baby steps. So I know the adrenaline that it gives you when you start paying off your bills. I know the excitement that girls, I know the excitement that you get when you're down to that last bill. I don't have this anymore to pay, except for my regular monthly bills, and then what do I do with the rest now? What do I do? Do I
Make
go
it work for you?
Habits? And that's where I think I went wrong. Now that I'm talking about it, I think that's where I went wrong, because it had no direction. I paid everything off, and I was free of the past debt, and then I went back and accumulated more debt. So hopefully we can help some people, bless some people today with you guys' knowledge on what this is. So you have another question, Chantel?
No, I was just going to recap that, say it was important for financial freedom to have a peace of mind and to be able to leave a legacy for your family. And a recap on why it's important to leave a legacy. We talked about it last time, but why is it important that we do the Ramsey steps to leave a legacy for our family? Why, is it just biblical, or is it just good practice to leave a legacy for your family?
I would think it's both, right?
Well, I think, that's a good question, Chantel. I think it's important to leave a legacy because like we ended last week. I work with a lot of youth in the community, and one of the biggest things that I see is they are being exploited and used and abused and neglected because of the lack of. And so if we don't provide the resources as family and leave these generational blessings and legacies, then the cycle continues. It becomes a perpetual cycle of saying, well, mama had to sleep with this person so she could pay the light bill. Daddy had to do this so he could pay the light bill. Mama had to go to sell drugs. People had to do immoral things and unbiblical things to make money, make ends meet. Versus if we leave generational legacies and generational wealth, then we are setting ourselves up for the future that God has planned for us. And so even with our kids, so if we are talking to them about saying, hey, let's budget, let's make sure that you are being a good steward over what grandma gave you, what grandpa gave you, the money that you have been given, it's important to leave those legacies so we won't be abused and neglected and taken advantage of in those situations when we need. And then again, it goes back to what Jeanette and everyone that has been saying this morning or this afternoon is saying, just have that peace of mind and being free. When you say, you know what, I need a pair of shoes, I have wealth that has been stored up, so I don't have to go do anything illegal to buy a pair of shoes. Right. And I can have a peace of mind in doing so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jeanette, what are
Very
your thoughts?
That everyone has said, of course. I just wanted to say something Charlene had said a little bit earlier about, I think one of the issues and the problems that people have is they don't plan to fail. I think what they do is they just fail to plan. And like Charlene was saying and stuff, if there is a plan, if you start planning young, almost like Letitia was saying and so forth, in budgeting and planning and doing certain things, you know the direction you want to go into. Now, that's not to say that you don't live while you're going through those phases, because I am one. I can tell you, I definitely did that. I did a little combination going on, and we'll get to that when Letitia gets more into the Dave Ramsey baby steps, because I did a combination of things, because all the concepts that Dave Ramsey teaches and stuff is very, very valid and very necessary. But I think when you have a plan in place, but we don't have a plan. You know why? Because we're a people, especially that's gone so many decades with nothing and not enough. We never had enough. We were always chasing behind certain things. And then when we get to the point where we get some money, we want things to make us feel better about where we are and what we're doing. You know what I mean? And so let's buy some things. Let's buy that nice car and let's feel like we arrived and let's feel like we're wealthy. And then we look back 10 years later and we're like, wait a minute. If I had to stop working today, I have nothing. If somebody asks me for $100, I'm like, oh Lord, not me. I'm gonna cringe to the back. I don't have it. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna have. When we go and do our doing things for the Lord and we spreading the word and we got budgets to be met. And no, they're not talking to me. No. I mean, you know what I'm saying? We don't even feed the kingdom like we should because we don't have that money because we've gone through those things. But if there's a plan where we give God first, where we pay ourselves second, and paying ourselves meaning paying off our debts, doing our emergency funds and things like that, and then we invest for our future, We got plans in place. And so we can help you put your plans in place. If that makes sense.
And that's
Well,
the
and I
part
think when you talk about the plans, I think a lot of people lack the vision for the plan. And so when you're talking
yeah,
about a
yeah,
plan, the Bible says
yeah.
without a vision, people perish. And so
That's
if
right.
I say, you know what, when you talk about breaking generational curses and why is a legacy important? Because it's a vision that comes with that legacy and breaking those generation curses.
Yeah.
If I said, you know what, I'm not going to succumb to poverty and welfare where I come from. That was the vision. And that is the vision that continues to drive me financially, saying, you need to budget. You need to learn some of these steps that Dave Ramsey is doing. You need to get around these people who are not in poverty and have different mindsets. So you can set up that vision for your daughter and your kids. But there has to be a vision for a plan to take place. Write the vision, make it plain, so he that read can run with it. And without a vision, people perish. So without a vision, our money perishes. And so there's a vision when it comes down to planning and generational wealth and legacy and financial freedom.
That's it. That's it.
That's right.
Got to see yourself differently. Got to see yourself differently.
So this is a question I want to ask. How can we help people see themselves differently? Because everybody does not have that mindset to want to do better, but how can we teach them? How can we get them to want to do better?
I'll jump in just again with the kids that I work with, regardless of the trauma and the things that they've gone through. Sometimes I needed someone to see me the way I needed to be seen before I could see myself. So sometimes you're not going to see yourself the way that God sees you, but you need people in your life and trust those people in your life that can see you and call you up until you can believe it. I might not have believed 10 years ago that I would be speaking on financial literacy because I was so poor and living paycheck to paycheck. But I had people in my life that telling me, no, you're going to be something. And so sometimes you may not see it. But do you have people in your life who you can trust that say, man, I don't see it, but I trust my mom, I trust my dad, I trust my grandma, I trust that what they see in me, because God has placed something in you that you may not be able to see yet. And so sometimes to answer your question, Chantel, when you are being called up, you need some people to see you until you can see yourself.
Yes, 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 yes. I like that. I like
Yes,
that.
that was good. Did you want to speak on that, Miss Jeanette?
I would just like to add to that, like I said the last time and stuff, you can't do what you don't know, but then when you do know, you do better. And like this forum that we have right now, ladies, and this is the reason why we're talking and helping people out, because we want to give them the information that they need, that they can do better. And sometimes another thing too, sometimes it's almost impossible to change when, like you said, the vision, when you don't believe in your heart, you need to change. You know what I mean? Some people don't think they don't need to change. I don't need to change anything. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't see a need to change or have that vision, like Letitia spoke of, then you won't do it. So we can give you information, we can share information, and this is truth, biblical truths, information, and that sort of thing. But if you don't see that need, that, you know what, I need to use that, or I need to do better, or being honest and being transparent, then you're not going to make those changes.
Okay.
I agree. I think when you decide to make a decision about yourself and your situation, and make a realistic, approach to what I want in my life, I believe the Lord honors us when we are able to not only write the vision, make it plain, the Bible says that the reader will run with it, but again, sometimes we have to believe that. We have to believe what we're writing and believe that this is what we're going to do. Believe that we're going to be debt free and we're going to be able to live a life on, not just a life now, but a life past now.
Right.
And that's what we need to live for. So I'm excited. So are we ready to hear what Letitia has to say?
Yes, we are.
All right, Letitia.
Very excited.
Me too.
Oh, wait, we have a question. Well, a statement.
Okay.
Mr. Albert J. Bloom Sr. said, without change, there can be no change.
Amen. 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 All right.
All right. So you ready, Miss Letitia?
I'm ready. So we're doing the baby steps. Is that what you're asking about, Chantel?
Yes, ma'am.
So the first thing that we'll start off with saying is that, you know, Forbes magazine, this was from 2019 going into 2020, states that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. We've all been there. We've all done it in some way, shape, form, or fashion. We can only imagine what the pandemic is right now. How are we living? 78% of of Americans live paycheck to paycheck prior to the pandemic. So with that being said, one of the recommendations that Dave Ramsey has is baby step number one is save $1,000 in emergency fund. Emergencies happen. Emergencies happen. You get a flat tire, your battery goes out, you need to go out of town for a family emergency. $1,000 in your emergency fund is baby step number one. And people may be thinking, well, that's not enough. It's not enough, or I can't afford it. But emergencies are going to happen. And if you need to save $500, save $500. But you have to have an established emergency fund because life happens. Before you can move on to any baby step, that $1,000 emergency fund is so vital and pivotal in your success of becoming financially free. Because what happens when an emergency comes, now, because we live paycheck to paycheck, now I have to stop paying the light bill and not pay the water bill because an emergency happened and I had no emergency fund. A lot of people have gotten stimulus. How much did you save for an emergency fund? How much did you put towards that? And so $1,000 emergency fund is step number one. Step number two is saying, you know what? I'm going to pay off all my debt except my mortgage. So what I looked at a few months ago is saying, let me look at my husband and I credit report. Let's see what's on our credit report. You can pull a free credit report from Credit Karma or TransUnion or Equifax or Experian, and you can see what's on your credit report. And so you pay off all your debt, smallest to largest. This is just what he says. You can do it however you want to do it. Smallest to largest. So if you have a $50, $150, and a $200, pay off your $50 first and just continue to snowball it to the $100 and then the $200 one. And when you paying off this debt, you are saving money because, oh, I don't have this on my credit report anymore. And so those two steps are really pivotal in order to move into the other steps. So step number one is $1,000 emergency fund. Step number two is paying off debt. Now I know some people may be thinking, listen, I don't know how much debt I have. How do we feel about that? I don't want to pay off any debt. I think that is very crucial and important that we pay off debt so we can have financial freedom.
Can I
Do we have any questions
for a second, Letitia, and share something that I heard this morning on WFAA this morning? They said that if you want car insurance, they now go by your credit report. So a person who is in debt pays more than a person who has a DWI and clear credit.
And you know, some jobs check your credit report too before they hire you.
Yes, I heard that too. But I just heard that this morning about car insurance. So you will get a higher estimate if you have bad credit. So if your credit score is low or you have a high percentage of debt, just exactly what you're saying, Letitia, your car insurance is going to be more. So I just wanted to share that.
And that's true. And so we need to understand what a credit report does and what it shows. It shows your debt to income ratio. It shows that this person has this much debt, but they make this much money. And so when Sherilyn is talking about your car insurance is predicated on your credit score, because they want to know, are you capable of paying this back? And so same thing with anything that's on your credit. They're saying, okay, you have this much debt, but you make this much money. Can you pay back and have you paid back on time?
And you know what else he said? I'm glad you brought that up. You know what else he said, and which I had never thought about, and that goes to show where my thinking is not. He said, if you get in an accident, they know where your money will go.
It's all a circle. It's full circle.
which I thought was odd. Yeah.
That's a good little segment right there. Whatever you was watching, Shirley, that's a
It
good
was
one.
it was on WFAA this morning. I mean, on the news. So it was right there. I was just shocked to hear it. Yeah.
That's
ABC.
good though.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's
No,
really
no, I'm just saying that's good. So step number one is save $1,000 emergency fund. You know, grandma used to always have something under the mattress and her bosom. She had a stash somewhere because she knew a rainy day and an emergency was coming. She knew it. And so just have that emergency fund. Step two, pay off all your debt except your mortgage. And you may be saying, why do I need to pay off all this debt except my mortgage? Because you have to understand the mindset and the concept is to be financial free, debt free. Like Shirley said, she didn't realize she was debt free because she had already paid off all the debt. I'm debt free. Now, baby step number three is saying save for 3 to 6 months of your expenses. 3 to 6 months of how much it costs to run your household. So step number one is just an $1,000 emergency fund in case of an emergency. So, but step number three is more of a long-term emergency situation, 3 to 6 months of emergency funds. And so you may be asking, why? What's the difference, 3 or 6 months? If you have a steady income, you may say, hey, I want 3 to 4 months. But if you have a variable income, like I'm a real estate or something that your money finances it's up and down, you may say, I need 6 months. I need a more stable emergency fund. So you may want to do 6 months of your household expenses. And when we're talking about household expenses, we're talking about your 4 walls: food, shelter, transportation, and utilities. When you are talking about budgeting, and I know this sounds simple, I know this sounds elementary, but we have to let our kids know this. We have to let people who are in poverty know this. We have to let people know about budgeting. These are the 4 things that I must budget for every month: food, shelter, transportation, and utilities. Every month, I'm going to be paying these things. Now, transportation, that doesn't mean I need to have a car note. That means that I just need a budget for my car insurance and my gas. But food, shelter, utilities, and transportation are the 4 things that you are budgeted for within this 3 to 6 months of emergency fund. Those 4 walls remind me of the walls of Nehemiah and when they was rebuilding it. Because when something happens, you want that stability in those 4 areas. Do we have food? Do we have shelter? Do we have transportation? And do we have utilities? Everything else as a family you can work with and you can protect, but you want to make sure that those 4 things are taken care of from an emergency fund, emergent situation. That is baby step number 3. Now, again, this is after you paid off your debt. Now, some people do, like Jeanette said, some people do it their way. They tweak it, they work it, they do it their way. I'm just telling you the Dave Ramsey way, but I'm also saying that either way, a budget is important. Either way, you need to make sure that your 4 walls are taken care of. Either way, you need to make sure that you have an emergency fund. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned is having an emergency fund. Baby step number 3, and this is where, so baby steps 1, 2, 3, we've got an emergency fund, we've gotten out of debt, we've saved for our fully funded emergency fund for 3 to 6 months. We are good right now. And this is where baby step number 4 comes into place, where you can say, hey, where's Jeanette? I know Jeanette talked about investing. I want to invest 15% of my income. I have no debt. Now, mind you, again, we're talking about a vision. When you are going through these baby steps, what is your vision? And when you are going through baby step number 2, you said, I'm paying off all my debt. I'm paying off all my debt because when I get to baby step number 4, I'm calling Jeanette and we're going to do some investing. And again, you can do it whenever you feel like it. I'm telling you just the baby steps. So Dave Ramsey says in baby step number 4, you done paid off debt. You done have a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months. Now I'm calling Jeanette and I can invest 15%. That is step number 4. I want to invest 15%. And I promise you, I didn't know this a year ago. I did not know how important investment was and how much to invest. Now, yes, I did have 401ks, but I didn't know how important investment was in this step. Everybody good? Step
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4?
Yes.
Okay. investment. And here's the thing about investment. And again, I know Ms. Jeanette, I'll talk more and elaborate more on this, but it's never too early to start. We can talk about the rule of 72. She can talk about the compound interest. You can talk about what age can I invest. Start early, invest though. And so you want to invest in baby step number 4. Baby step number 5, it talks about save for your children's college fund. And this is where mindsets come into place, because when you're talking about, well, what if my kid don't want to go to college? It's okay. At least have a plan, a vision in place to say, you know what, if my kid doesn't want to go to college, at least we have a way of funding their future, whether it's trade school, college, military. Have something stashed aside for your kids. This is what I have for my kids, whether it's a 529, whether it's an IRA, I have this set aside for my kids' future. You see how I feel like each one of these steps is a vision, is carrying a vision, but it's also breaking off generational curses and leaving legacies.
It is.
Yes.
And I think this is where me and my sister Sherilyn talked about. This is where Sherilyn was and is. She's on baby step number 6 that says, pay off your home.
Right.
Pay off your home. And here's the thing, and I know everybody's thinking, man, if I didn't have a mortgage, what would I be doing? But if you didn't have a mortgage, if you didn't have debt, if you didn't have, anything to owe it to anybody, you paid off your mortgage. What is the last thing that I do? Continue to build wealth and give. Dave Ramsey likes to say, live like no one else so I can live and give like no one else. If you want to live and give and do that ministry and be who God has called you to be, we cannot do this without budgeting. We cannot do this without being good financial stewards. So when Sherilyn and I was talking last month, I was like, no, sis, you want baby step number 6. If you are only thing you have is paying off your mortgage, you are on baby step number 6, and you're right there ready to build wealth and give like no one else. Because whenever you live like no one else, you can live and give like no one else. When you are saying, I'm going through these baby steps, it's hard to say, no, I can't go out to eat. No, I can't go to that game. No, I can't go out of town, because you have a vision. You living like no one else. Dave Ramsey always says, being broke is normal. Be weird. Are you willing to be weird and say, I shop at the thrift store? I don't shop at all. Like Sherilyn was talking about bags. I don't care about bags. I'm getting out of debt right now.
Right. Bags are nice. Cars are nice. But it's better to have money and to be able to now see, and it's unfortunate that I didn't see this before, because if I was younger, when I was younger and had money, I could have done other things differently, like saving for my retirement and saving, not just resting on a retirement, but actually saving for my retirement. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't start that till late. So I was in my 40s when I started saving for retirement. And so I could have been in my 20s saving for my retirement. And it didn't matter what job I moved to or what state I moved to. Had I been doing this, I would have still been securing the bag, as the young folks say now. I would have secured the bag back then. And so you're right. I encourage my daughter to, and she's secure, but I encourage her to make sure she has streams of income, not just money. I mean, you have a retirement, okay, you're waiting for that company to retire you and take care of you, but you don't even know if Social Security is going to be available for you when you get to be my age, okay? And so with that, that's not what you rely on is Social Security, where my mother relied on Social Security and her pensions, and that's what she lives comfortably, but it's more than living comfortably. I want to be able to still live my current lifestyle, even after I no longer work for who I work for. Okay. I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to be secure. And I just think that's a kingdom mindset. When we're able to do that. And I think Jeanette hit the nail on the head when she said, when we're in our prospective churches or whatever, and they ask for $100, we should not have to hum about it. We should be able to write the check. Well, now they have telepay or whatever they call it, but before I could just write the check, and that's it. Not that it makes me feel good. It makes me know that I'm in line with whatever God's vision is, whether it's for his house or his people, and that's when I think we are blessed the most, when you're able to do that and not have any additional thoughts about that, and I just know that it's such a hard place to get out of, because I think a lot of times it's not hard for people to make money. I think the problem is, how do we manage it? And that's why we're having this conversation today, because there are times that we struggle in the management of it.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's good.
Also where that budgeting piece starts, like that foundational piece.
Yeah.
We that money in budget properly and so forth, that will help us with all the other avenues or the other steps that we need to take care of.
Absolutely. And that goes back to what we talked about. Again, my mindset up until a couple of years ago is, I don't want to budget, because I grew up in poverty and welfare, and I want to spend whatever I want to spend. But then I realized that a budget only helps me spend and tells me where my money to go, tells my money where to go. A budget was helping me. It wasn't limiting me. It helped me do more of, like Charlene was saying, do more of what I wanted to do more efficiently, instead of limiting me from what I wanted to do. And so that budget is vital, because it kind of it just sets order. And then the last thing I'll add, Charlene was talking about benefits. A lot of people say, well, I stay at my job because they have good benefits. They have good benefits, which is, again, to each his own. But don't limit yourself to only that. Don't limit yourself to only your job's 401k. And I'm sure Ms. Jeanette will talk about it more. There are several other ways for you to invest outside of your job. Yes. But you have to have a budget. You have to have a vision to say, you know what, this is what I need for my life. This is what I need for my legacy to live on. And it really all begins with the budget.
All begins with a budget. Okay. Let's move on. So we're at baby step 7.
Yes, 6, 7 baby steps. And like I said, the last baby step, you've done everything. You've gone through. I saved for my emergency fund. I've paid off my debt. Then I saved for my 3 to 6 months of emergency fund. I saved for my kids' college. I paid off my mortgage. Now I'm on baby step number 7, where I could build wealth. Just imagine, you talk about a kingdom mindset, Shirley. Just imagine if all the money you had coming home was going to you, and you could give and live like no one else. Give to the church, give to all other organizations, give to helping people in need in the community. That is baby step number 7, leaving that legacies and saying, I could build wealth and give like no one else, because I live like no one else. I sacrifice like no one else.
Yes. You're
right there, Shirley. You're right there.
Well, I'm trying to get there. Got to pay my mortgage off. Yeah, I pay my mortgage off. But with that being said, it is a peaceful place to be. And so I was interested in hearing the steps, because I think it's important for others to know and to be able to hear how to do it. Because I think what happens is, people will say, I want to become debt free. I want to be financially free, but they don't know the steps to take, and they can't. And the reason we're using Dave Ramsey, I've used him as well, but the reason we're encouraging it, and they can find other tools, just like Letitia said, there are other methods and other ways to go. It's just today that we're highlighting him, but the reality is, some of us just need discipline. We need guidance. We need something to follow. And for me, and I can say this with all sincerity, I needed something to follow. I needed something to hear. I needed something to kind of give me a set course. Okay, I know I've accomplished this. I know I've accomplished that. So the first $1,000 I was able to do, and then the next thing was knocking those little bills down, taking care of those bills, and just focusing and saying, okay, this is my plan. I'm not going to spend extra money. I'm going to focus on my bills. And when I did that 2 years ago, I was able to really, really horn in on all of my bills. Thank God. And at first I couldn't see the end. I could not see the end. And I know when he talks about the gazelle intensity, it kind of revs you up. It gave me just like this great feeling it just revved me up when I did start paying it, because it seemed like it was taking forever. But finally I started catching momentum and putting my money in place, and not just throwing it away to just foolish things, but actually doing what I'm supposed to do. And all while being a good steward. I'm a tither. I believe in tithing. Okay. So that never got shortcutted because of what I was doing. I'd have to leave some things out for myself to make sure the budget fit, so I can make sure I paid things off. So it does work. And that's what I want to encourage. When Chantel and I were talking about it, she's involved now. She's on, I'm gonna let her talk about her experience, but it is definitely worth doing and worth looking into the baby steps. And I know that, what is her name?
Susie Orman?
Susie Orman, yes. Susie Orman is another one. Robert Kiyosaki is another person, okay, who people can understand. Robert Kiyosaki was hard for me. I just couldn't, I needed something a little bit simpler for me, okay? It was very smart. I'm not smart in numbers, so I'm a reader, but not but he was giving us all kinds of stuff to do, and I had a hard time. And I did that years ago, back in the 80s and the 90s. I bought Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I read the book, and I still didn't get it. Okay, I still didn't get how to do it. And that was just me, but somebody else could find that Rich Dad, and there's nothing wrong with Robert Kiyosaki. So I'm not saying anything negative. I'm just saying it was me. I couldn't connect. So I read the book, but I couldn't connect. And Dave Ramsey's process was a lot simpler. I've listened to Susie Orman, but it didn't give me enough discipline. I needed more. Okay. I'm talking about myself. I'm being transparent. But for everybody, there's a different path that you take to financial freedom. Chantel, you want to talk about your experience?
Yes. I have started with Dave Ramsey. I'm on baby step 2. I'll be there for a while because I have a lot of student loans. But I am working towards, paying stuff down. And it is simplified. I need simple because I have so much other things going on in my life and other commitments and businesses I'm trying to do and doing. So I need something simple. So Dave Ramsey was simple for me. I do like bags. I do like shopping, but see, I'm a bargain shopper. So if it's not on clearance, I don't buy it. And if I see something I like, I won't buy it. I won't buy anything at full price. I watch it until it goes down to the price that I want it to. And if it does not go down to that price, then I don't get it. So that's how I save money. And once I started doing Dave Ramsey, I learned that I had done a lot of steps already. Like I already had an emergency fund. So I was pretty much following the plan, but not realizing that I was following the plan. And so far it has been good. I love.
You froze for a minute, Chantel. We missed what you said. You said since you were following Dave Ramsey, and then you paused. You froze.
Oh,
So say it again.
well, I said since I've been following Dave Ramsey, it's been easy for me to do it. I did not realize previously that I was following Dave Ramsey when I was on my own because I had already saved up emergency and I was paying things down and only buying discount stuff and not spending my money like a crazy person. Up until a few years ago, I didn't have credit cards. I never wanted credit cards. And if I buy something, I buy it cash. I don't buy it on credit. I feel like my motto is if I don't have the cash to pay for it, then I don't need it. Because I don't like spending my money. My children would say that I do not like spending my money. I will keep my money uh, to myself. But see, I'm learning that just saving your money is not good either because it's not working for you. So the next step is going to be to invest. So that's where I am. And that's my journey.
Awesome, awesome. So Letitia, share with our audience, because we do have people on, what they could do in regards to Financial Peace University.
Financial Peace University is the class that I teach through Dave Ramsey's Institute, and it just walks through these baby steps more in depth with you. And so if you want to join our class, you could visit letitiasmith.com, and they could put it in the link for you, letitiasmith.com. And we have another class coming up. I think at the beginning of May is when the next class comes up. But more than anything, it teaches you these practical steps, hands-on, and walk through it with you one by one, and give you the practical tools on how do I budget, how do I have an emergency fund, how much. And so it's more personalized. And so if you're saying, you know what, I need to get into this baby steps, I need to do this emergency fund, and I want financial freedom, and so I can invest, and so I can live and give like no one else, just visit letitiasmith.com, and we should have the page on there that says when our next financial freedom class is going to be in May.
Okay. Chantel, you're going to get that on for the people?
Yes, I will.
Thanks, thanks. Well, we thank you, because that is the first part of this journey to financial freedom. Yes.
Well, the
That's
first part I think is self-awareness. You have
Yes.
to be self-aware enough to know that you need to have a budget and take care of your finances. So
Yes, 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 yes. And so we thank Letitia for that.
yes,
But
ma'am.
now we're going to go into how do we make the money grow? How do we make it grow? How do we make it
Work for us.
work for us? Do what it do. That's what I heard before. How can we make the money do what it do?
Work while we sleep.
Work what? Yeah. Today.
Okay, I will definitely do that. But Miss Charlene, let me ask you, because you said that you were doing the baby steps before you realized you were doing the baby steps. So tell us what you decided to do and how you came along with the baby steps, and you're already on baby step 6 now.
Well, I started the baby steps in 2000. This is 21. I started because I became debt free in 2020, at the end of 2020. So I started baby steps in 2018. And I had been to a Dave Ramsey conference. He had a conference at our church, and it didn't click. And I think that was like 2009, or I even told Chantel when we were moving, I said, I found my book from the conference that I had gotten back then, and the bag and the stuff that I put it away. And got the book, loved the conference, heard it, started to do a little bit of it, and then I fell off. And that must have been, like I said, 2010 or 11, something like that. And then in the end of 2017, my daughter mentioned to me about Dave Ramsey again. And I said, yeah, I think I've been to a conference or a training or something with him. And at that time I had debt again. Debt again. You know, I had become debt free when I left New York back in 2004. So 2003 was my first time becoming debt free. I did it on my own. I didn't have anything. I just paid off my bills. And that's not discipline, paying off your bills. I paid off everything. So when I came to Texas, I didn't have any bills, but I wasn't financially free. Does that make sense? Because I didn't have any vision for it. I didn't have anything. I just didn't have any bills. And I got here and I did what I always do. I got bills. I did what I did. And when I didn't have money and I needed money, I used my card. Okay, and that's something I learned years ago, and I thought that that was the right thing to do. Was when you don't have money, you have a credit card, and whatever my credit card said I had, that was my value. And I mean, I'm not ashamed, because that was a common thought. It wasn't like, and then I had to pay, and I would pay the minimum amount every month to pay it off, which was ridiculous. Now that I look at it, it was ridiculous. And then, like I said, it was either 2010, 11, 12, one of those years. That's when I saw, I went to the Dave Ramsey conference at the church, and it was just hearing that he was there, I decided to go. I had never heard of him before that. I went, but I didn't take heed. I listened, I was enthused, but I didn't take heed at that point. It wasn't until 2017, at the end, I decided that I wanted to become debt free. Just really, I wanted to embrace the mindset. So I really, at that point, I started listening to the podcast. I started listening to, I didn't read the book. I listened to it on a podcast. I listened to the whole book being read, because sometimes I didn't have a lot of time, and I didn't manage my time well either. So I didn't have time to sit down and just read, because I was doing other things. But I did get a chance to hear the entire book, online. And I thought that that was awesome, and when I listened to it, I realized that's me. That's me, but there were some other things that I had in place, like I was telling you last time, like my 457. My boss, years ago, when I first started working here in Texas, she said to the whole team that we needed more savings opposed to just our retirement. And that's how I got hooked up into investing, because she mentioned that to the whole team, and that's how I got connected. But not until 2000, I think it was a little before that, I started investing more. I think my tax guy mentioned it. But it was like the Lord kept telling me little signs like, hey, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. And I just didn't do it, I was slow about it. And now the light is on. So for the last 2.5 years or so, I have been 1, 2, and 3. And I thought, and when I was telling Letitia, I thought I was a baby step 4. I really did. I didn't even think the fact that I was already at 6, because I had invested. I do 15%. Well, I do more than 15%. I do like 18, 19% in investing. So I do more than the 15, so I'm sorry. Can you guys hear that dinging? I'm so sorry. That's apparently my computer's hooked up to my phone. So somebody is texting me. I'm sorry. But that's how I did it, Miss Jeanette. I got connected, and I do 19%, because he said 15, but I thought I should do a little bit more, and I did. And now that I have gotten involved, I think it was in 2019, I went to a ELP person, one of Dave Ramsey's people for investing, for retirement. I think it was for retirement. I went and talked to one of them, and she said I was doing the right thing. So I'm on track now. I mean, it took years, but I'm finally on track. So yes.
And that's a good thing, because and I'm going to tell a bit of my story too, but that's a good thing because you have financial resources too. And a lot of people don't have the financial resources to even do that. Like 19% going into your retirement, your 457 or other investment vehicles and stuff, is pretty darn good. But, a lot of people say, I can barely live, like Letitia said, 78% of people or the working class is living paycheck to paycheck. So they don't have additional monies to put toward investing or to pay, barely paying down bills, but they're paying the bare minimums, and that compound interest is killing them. And so they don't realize that, because you know what I'm saying? And then that's why they have these small bills for a $2,000 loan for 20 years, because of compounding interest, and they don't have the financial resources. And so which with that budget that Letitia was talking about would help some. But one of the other things for me, it's funny that Dave Ramsey, because I used to listen to the podcast all the time. And I used to like the question and answer session when people would say, what their situation is, and just listen to Dave Ramsey come back and what he thought would be the best, role for them to take. I used to like that segment or what have you. And again, when I started saving years ago, I got to that $1,000. I thought, I said, okay, I can do this. I can put a savings account together and I can save that $1,000 that he talked about in baby step 1. And then with baby step 2, the paying down debt and so forth and so on. One of the things that we do in our financial service business is we do debt stacking, which is the exact same principle, exact same thing, where we look at everything. We do in our business, we do what we call a financial needs analysis, and it's free of charge. And it just breaks down all your liabilities, all your assets, all what your income is, all your responsibilities. And we took a snapshot of that, and then we look at that and we see where we can save, where we can pull, where we can do, and how we can divvy that up. Does that make sense? And so we start there. And we see where your resources are, because I can guarantee you the majority of people will say, I don't have financial resources to do that. And it's going to also come up when we start talking about investing as well, because we talked about investing in baby step 4, but at the same time, to me, I thought different people are at different stages of life. And if you're teaching, like Letitia's teaching the young and teaching the teenagers and teaching them about money and how money works, you got to know the rules of the game. And to play any game, you have to know the rules. How does money truly work? And with the compounded interest. And we've talked about, I can talk about the rule of 72 and all those other things that have been the foundational pieces for financial institutions for years. But that was information that was never given to us, even that degree. I have a master's in business administration. You would think that I would have gotten those types of things. I didn't get that. Didn't, you know what I mean? And so back to where you were, so whatever, everybody's coming on a different road, how they got to the point where, I have to do better. I'm not comfortable at this no more. I'm not comfortable with having all this debt. I'm not comfortable living paycheck to paycheck anymore. I'm not comfortable, and I'm pushing the door to retirement, or that long-term retirement. And I want to make sure that I continue the lifestyle, like you said, Charlene, continue that lifestyle even when I decide, okay, I'm not going to corporate America job anymore. And I want to continue that lifestyle and stuff, and be at peace about it. You know what I'm saying? I want to give, whatever. So God has given us the foundation of tithes and offerings. We have to do that. If that's the life that we're going to live, that's his word. That's what we need to do. And so we need to be able to do that. We're blessed. A lot of times, we've heard, we're blessed to be blessings to others. How can we be blessings to others when we can be a blessing to ourselves? You know what I'm saying? We can barely do that or whatever. And so people who don't have those types of resources, we offer them an opportunity and so forth that they can get those types of resources or additional resources without taking a lot of time to do it and without taking money to do it. Does that make sense? We offer that as well as part of the FNA, the financial needs analysis thing. And then we do, you start off with that $1,000 because you need that liquid income. You need that money. You can put my hands on that. The dryer goes out, the refrigerator goes out, you have that immediate access to that money and so forth. And that's all right if that's in a savings account. But we teach people you don't want to leave money, large amounts of money, or even money beyond that, in savings accounts and credit unions and things like that, because all that happens is that money is in holding chamber, really. It's doing nothing for you. It's just sitting there. And you remember the last time in our first section, we talked about in the book of Luke, chapter 19, I think it was, or whatever. We talked about the parable of the menace. We talked about that in the last time, and I'm just going to really bring that back up because it's going to lead us right into the investment phase of this. But what happened when the ruler and stuff gave all his people the menace, and he said, "I'm going away, and when I come back, I'm going to see what you did with with the money, right?" And all those people who multiplied the money that they gave, the king gave, right? He said, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And it was the servant who came back and brought back the same thing that he was given in the end. And what did he tell him? That one servant who brought back and who just still has it in that holding spot, that's that savings account. That's not the emergency fund now, but that's that savings account. We have money there, but that's all some of us know. That's all we know to do. Save your money into a bank, save your money into a credit union. And that's what we know. But what happens, that money really just sits there.
Yeah.
Bare minimum, a penny on a dollar, maybe, that you get. As a matter of fact, I had just gotten a statement, a credit union statement or what have you. And the percentage of interest on a credit union statement was 0.1. 0.1. That's less than a penny on your dollar. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just a holding piece. But when you go to that scripture, though, what happened? He called him a wicked servant. He told him he was wicked and he didn't do the right thing because he brought the same thing back to him when he came back. And he took it from him and he gave it to those that had multiplied their money.
Yes.
Investment is multiplying your money and allowing you and putting you into vehicles to multiply your money.
Yeah.
How do you do that? It's different for different people. It depends on what your short-term goals are. It depends on what your long-term goals are. Now, our long-term goal should always be when we get to our retirement age that we want to stop that corporate job scene and we want to be able to live comfortably and peacefully, and keep that lifestyle going, right? But it depends on what it is for you. And what we teach people, not only teach them, we show them the vehicles we can put them in with the top companies in the business, in the financial service business. Let's face it, we go to school to get a good job. Why? To make money. It's finances. Everything we do is centered around finances. It's centered around money. Right. And so if we do that, then we need to know what to do with that money when we get it. And not just pay bills and strike up credit cards and look like we live in well or whatever the case may be, and yet have nothing to show for it. Almost like, you said, Charlene, or whatever the case may be, you were debt free, but you had no disposable income to work with. And so that's what we show people to do, how to do a little bits of that as you move forward. As you move forward in some of the baby steps, how you can do 2 or 3 of those things as you moving forward. Does that make sense? Because guess what? One of the things that we show people is, first of all, my first step, my first foundational piece in anything before anybody invests anything is having income protection. Now, what do I mean by that, Jeanette Bloom? You have to protect your income. If you have loved ones who are depending on your going to work every day to survive each day, you have to protect that income. How do you protect that income? You protect that income by life insurance. We don't teach whole life insurance. We teach term. Why? Because we don't think that's something you should be doing your whole life. You should only do that to protect your income while you build your wealth. Once you begin to build your wealth and get through some of these other baby steps, you self-insure yourself so that you don't need the insurance portion. Does that make sense? And so that's where we start. We don't teach anybody or put anybody into any kind of vehicles until they're protecting their income. Because tomorrow, we all, praise God, we all want to live a long life, but tomorrow's not promised to none of us. And that we don't know. No. And talk about legacy and we talk about building wealth and generational wealth. We need to, God forbid, but look at what's going on in the news today. you can't even go to a grocery store now, and 10 people lose their life in a grocery store, right? We got people that's coming into businesses, and God forbid, I'm not claiming I don't live in fear because God is my divine protection. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, we don't know when that time comes, right? And people going into businesses and stuff, and 4 or 5 people lost their life on the job, and we hear this for years. How many times do we hear people and so forth? There was just one person just in parents in road rage. Do you know, with COVID and mental stability of people, that road rage is on an all-time high? And this 23-year-old pregnant, 8 months pregnant, was killed, shot because of road. So there's so many things around us, but to bring it all back home, you have to protect that income first. Now, listen, some people will say, well, I have insurance on my job. Here is what we teach you. We just educate you. Here's what we say.
Right.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's a benefit, let's just talk about benefits. If that's a benefit that your job will give you, fine. But that's by far nowhere near enough. And here's why. One, that benefit is only going to be an annual year salary, unless you're making $300,000, $400,000 a year. I mean, is that annual salary enough for your family to move forward, not only in their distress of losing a loved one, but to move forward in the lifestyle that you intended for them to have when you were here? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
That's not enough money. And here's what happens when you rely on just that. COVID taught us a lot.
Mhm.
A lot of things. We didn't have 40 million people in the line for unemployment in the US for nothing. 40 million people was a lot of people that was in line for unemployment. Does that make sense? There was so many businesses that went under. There was so many companies that had to shut their doors.
Right.
Jobs aren't secure, not in the long shot, regardless of the industry that you're in. You know what? Not only am I in the financial service business, but I was also in the medical arena, and even nurses. We had nurses that had to be furloughed because a lot of things stopped because of the pandemic of COVID, right? And so what happens, you never know when that's going to happen.
Right.
You don't know when you're not going to have that job anymore to fall back on that benefit. So your family members should not have to depend on that. What if you decide to leave that company? When you leave that company, you don't take that life insurance with you.
No, that doesn't.
Unless you do that. They got that little conversion thing going on, but that little conversion thing, and that's a whole another entity in itself, where you can do that within that 30-day period and so forth. Again, it's a whole life policy. It's still only worth your annual salary, which is really not going to be that enough for your family to survive off of, right? So we always teach and educate individuals to have a personal policy to protect that income so that your family has something to fall on while you're building your wealth and your legacy and your financial freedom. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then so we got that part. So we got the life insurance, which is our foundation. And then we go into, like you said, baby step number 2. We help and teach you, we call it debt stacking, but it's the same principle. We talk about high interest cards first. Let's list them all on how much interest you're paying. Let's start with the higher interest ones first. And then when you're paying that one, I'll put a little, depending on how we can help you maneuver some things. Like we talked about last time, we talked about, we got a lot of money and stuff, and we don't have money for things, but we can get those nails done, and we can get that hair done, and we can get the weave done, and we can get the this, that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's where you put your value that's important. And we just try to shift your thoughts into what's really valuable at this stage in your life. And we teach you and we show you how you can do something at this level, right? And so then we talk about the debt stacking, and then after you pay this one off with the high interest rate, then you take that amount of thing that Letitia was talking about when it comes to paying off debt and that kind of thing until you pay off. Because let me tell you, that compound interest, that's a game changer.
Game changer.
compound interest is a monster because it tells you how many times. Okay. Let me ask you this. How many times have we bought a vehicle? We go into a dealership and we want to buy a vehicle. And the first thing they want to ask you will, how much can you afford? Wrong question. Wrong question. Because guess what they'll do? See, what they'll do is they'll try to get that note into what you can afford. But then in the end, they don't tell you how long it's going to take you to get there. And it may take you now, it used to be years ago, it used to be 4 years, 5 years. Now it's 6 and 7, 8 years. I've heard people get quotes for 8 years for a car, but they want to get you in that, oh, you're only paying this a month. But that compound interest is going to keep compounding every month, every year. And a $20,000 car may cost you 50 by the time you finish it, if you stay on that track. You understand? You can pay double, well over double for that vehicle when you add all that up. And that's giving money away. And those are the kind of things we help steer people away from, you know what I mean? And help guide them in a different direction. Yeah. Does that make sense? Because compound interest can be your worst enemy, but then when you're investing, it can be your best friend.
Yeah.
Because when you're investing money into certain vehicles, that compound interest works for you too. And that's how that money grows. And that's how that money multiplies, because of compound interest. Because the interest that you're making on this little bit of money is just reinvested, and that's more money, and that money is being compound interest, and that money is compounding, and that money is compounding, and that's how money multiplies. And those are the types of things in vehicles we help people get into to help their money grow. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Now, I don't want to be too technical now. I want everybody to understand where I'm saying. So if I'm getting a little bit too technical, let me know. Now, let me just add on the baby step 3, which is the 3 to 6 months that Dave Ramsey has always talked about, and so forth and so on. And Charlene mentioned Susie Orman. Do you know with COVID hit, you know what Susie Orman is saying now? 8 to 12 months. She's saying 8 to 12 months now. That short-term saving. It used, everybody used to, years ago, they used to say that 3 to 6 months, but then with COVID, 3 to 6 months of income didn't help a lot of people either. You know what I mean? Because it was like, because we had COVID, it's still going on, but we over a year out now. We're a year into COVID. I mean, March last month made a year, when things started, March 15th to be exact, or whatever the case may be, where things kind of shut down and stuff, whatever, and we're slowly creeping back, but we're still in the midst of COVID and all its after effects. Does that make sense? Hey,
Ms. Jeanette, I have a question. Real quick. So regardless of if it's 3 to 6 months or a year, where should this money be invested?
That's a great question, Letitia. It's gonna, like I say, it's gonna depend for the individuals, because it depends on what you want to do and where you are in life. Here's what I'm saying. If that short term, you want that, it's like an emergency fund kind of like, but sometimes we call it a short term account. What if you want to buy a vehicle and so forth? Because them Rams, want you to buy and fund money, right? But if you want to do a vehicle or you want to buy a home, it depends on what you want to do in the short term. What do you want to be doing in the next 3 to 5 years? Because it's different from people. If they want to buy a home, then we put that money not into a savings account, but we have, you can do a mutual fund. You can do a mutual fund. Now we're going to talk about what a mutual fund is. We said last time, but I'm going to bring that back home again. It can be a very conservative fund where it's not something that's a high risk or get a high return, but it can be so conservative that it's way more income or way more money that you're making on that money than a savings account can ever give you. And it's easily accessible to you. Even in a mutual fund, if you got 3 to 5 years going down the line, 5 years, I want to be buying this house or whatever the case may be. You can get that in a mutual fund. You can keep it as conservative as you want, depending on makes a certain amount of money while it's doing that, so that you can have that money for that down payment or whatever you want, that 20% for the home that you're going to buy and that kind of thing. So it's going to be different for everybody, but we help you according to what your goals are, depending on what your risk tolerance is, because there's some people say, oh, I can gamble. I want more return, and I know I can lose big, but that's okay for me. You know what I mean? And you have some people say, I don't want to lose none of my principal. I want to keep it. That's a lot more conservative. So it just depends on the individual. But we can do mutual funds. We can put you in vehicles where we can do mutual funds, depending on from conservative to aggressive, right? And in 5 to 7 years and stuff, that money will grow money than the 2 pennies that you're going to get in a savings account and a credit union account. Does that make sense?
Yes. Let me ask you this, Jeanette. I know you say it depends on the person, but say we have a conservative person. What are some good stocks for them to invest in? And what if we have an aggressive person? What are some good stocks for them to invest in?
Okay, so now that's another great question, Chantel. And so here is where what we do come in. I deal specifically with mutual funds. I don't invest my own money in specific stocks. That's a dangerous game to be in. Not a dangerous, it's okay if you understand the market, if you understand the economy, if you understand the market, if you want to play that game, you can. I just don't. And so, because I have other things going on, I don't want to watch the market, and I know how the market works, but I don't want to be there on my computer all day, every day, watching the market and doing a stock. And you don't want to invest in a stock. I want to do Apple stock and something's going on or whatever the case may be, and it plummets and you lose money regardless. You know what I'm saying? We're about mutual funds, and mutual funds is about diversification. And what I mean by mutual fund, let me just explain what it is to the listeners, and so we can kind of break this on home, okay? A mutual fund is a fund where Cheryline, me, Chantel, Letitia, and about thousands of other people are investing in this one fund. Say we're all conservative and we want to preserve our money, but yet we want our money to grow way further and that than a banking account will do, right? So we're doing a conservative fund, and we invest in this mutual fund that's a conservative level. Well, in this mutual fund, it's a professionally managed fund by a professional manager with a company. And in that fund, there are about 100 different companies in that fund. And it's breaking it down into stocks, into bonds, into other things that will bring the overall outcome that we want. We want a conservative fund to make 5, 6, 7% interest on our money and so forth. And we want it for the next 3 to 5 years, right? That fund will do exactly that. That fund will do exactly that. Now, there's 100 companies in there. Here's why diversifying is so important. Because if 1 or 2 of those companies decide to tank, you got so many other things and so forth and so on that will shift, that will keep the objective of the fund intact, so that we still get that conservative investment. Does that make sense? So I don't do, now there are other programs out there that will do things. We mentioned some of those the last time, like we talked about the Charles Schwab, and we talked about the Robinhood, and we talk about there's some these other investment clubs, and there are all kinds of things now. The internet is flooded with them. I guess there's a lot of people who had a lot of time to do some things while we were in COVID and shut down. So there are a lot of things. There are investment groups. There's so many things, and they're showing you how you can do this with your own money.
Yeah.
But I think that's a huge gamble, because if you don't understand some things, you can lose big.
Yeah.
That makes sense, regardless of how conservative you want that investment to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
makes sense.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear you.
Is Letitia still with us? Oh, okay. So did that hear though?
She's there.
Oh, hey, Letitia.
No, I'm just talking to, just piggybacking off what you were saying about mutual funds and like our 401ks and different things like that. I think one of the, like you saying, you have to get with people who really understands that. But one of the biggest things is when you're talking about GameStop stock and day trading. I know a lot of my nursing colleagues, they do day trading, and that stuff is funds. That's something that you should get an understanding of if you have a 401k, because you want to know where your money is
Yeah.
and what your, because I know a lot of times when you talking about benefits, whenever you apply for your company's 401k, a lot of companies just a lot of companies just just put your money anywhere.
Right.
You don't. So what I started doing is going into my own 401k and say, hey, I want my money to go into Apple, Amazon. I want my money to go into these different mutual fund stocks instead of just letting your job dictate where your money goes. So if you have a job with benefits in 401k, log into your 401k and see where your money is going, because you do have the right to allocate where your money is going instead of letting your job dictate where your money is going.
That's a good point.
Absolutely. Well said.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's why I was asking, what are some good stocks to, to pick to invest in?
Dave Ramsey talks about different ones. He said you want to invest in a growth mutual stock, aggressive. He has 4 different categories that he said you should invest in. But just to be practical and answer your question, Amazon is a great stock. One of my friends started with Amazon back in the day when it was like $200 per share. Now Amazon is worth $3,000. So the goal with buying stock is they say buy low so you could sell it when it's high. So if she bought it at $200 and now it's worth $3,000, she made money. And so some good stocks is Apple is another good stock. I have Apple products. So you want to find those stocks that are cheap enough to buy, but you feel like they are still going to increase. Another stock that I invested in is called JD.com. Now it's a Chinese stock, it's an international stock, and I think it's like $20 a share. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. It's $20 a share. But if JD goes up and it goes up to $100 a share, I've made money. But I'm not doing this every day. I'm just letting it sit there versus GameStop stock. It was just a day thing. It was just a day trading thing. So it's the difference between day trading stock and long-term stock.
So I have a question. So Letitia, you find the companies like the Apple and the GameStop or whatever, and you invested a certain amount of money through. Did you do it through like a Charles Schwab or day trading or E-Trade or account, something like that? You did?
So what's funny is I have 401k at my job at the hospital. I have a pension at my job at the hospital. So I started going into them and seeing what they did. Now I do have an app called Stash where I just invest my own self just to play around with it to see what it's like too. So I have a Stash app, and then I go in and I say, okay, I have $50 extra this month. I'm gonna throw it into Stash, and I'm gonna invest into JD.com or Apple or Reebok or Nike or whatever stocks I have. And so I kind of do it myself, but again, it's not something that I'm doing every day, and that's stressing me and draining me. Like again, the GameStop, the way that so many people make money off GameStop is because they bought it that day and then they sold it the next day. Versus the one that I have, I'm just saying, listen, I invested in Amazon. I'm gonna see how far Amazon goes, and I just leave it there. So I do that one myself, and then the one on my job, I went into it on my job and say, hey, these are the places where I want my money to go. I do not want you picking where this money is going. I want my money to go here, here, here.
So what's the name of the app that you use?
I use Stash. So
Stash.
it's STASH Stash. And that's just what it does. And it's just say that again.
I was gonna just say you could buy stocks through Cash App, Robinhood, Webull, just as some apps that you could use to invest in stocks on your own. Because I've been researching them. I haven't done anything yet.
I don't know if I would use Cash App though. I don't know.
Well, Cash App is if you want to buy.
Cash App.
Cash App is if you want to buy Bitcoin, which I don't know anything about Bitcoin, so I won't be doing Bitcoin. But I've been looking into Robinhood, so I may start doing them, or I may look into Stash since you've used it already. But I've been looking at stuff. I have not done it yet because I'm a little apprehensive, but I have been looking.
Yeah. Um, and so you just have to know what where your money is going when you are investing into these different companies. Especially like Jeanette was talking about a 401k. So a 401k is a mutual fund, but in that mutual fund you have several different companies, and so but you want to know which companies is part of my investment. Like who am I invested in my 401k?
Your portfolio,
Like
your
I have
portfolio
like
companies.
Lyft. Hold on, honey. Hold on. Keep going. Go ahead. Go ahead. Like Lyft. Lyft is another one. Go. Keep going, honey. Keep going. I'm sorry, my daughter driving. Make sure she don't hit. But Lyft is another good one. Lyft. I'm looking at Lyft right now. Lyft is $50 a share, and I think I have $80 in Lyft. And keep hearing that Lyft is going up. And so Lyft is another good one that's feasible. $50 for one share, and the more it goes up, the more my money makes. I don't have to trade it. I don't have to do anything. I'm just saying I just want my $80 to stay right here on Lyft. So if Lyft goes up to 5,000, I'm continuing to make money off that share.
Very informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was good. Jeanette, so if a person wanted to come to you and talk to you about those mutual funds, how would they, like, would you guys tell them? Like Letitia just gave us some tidbits that she uses, but do you give us the, would you give us the most up to date information? Am I saying it right? Information, or I don't just call it.
What we would do, depending on your level of term investing or long-term investing, what type of person you are, do you want to be conservative? Do you want to be, do you want some growth? Do you want income? Do you want to be aggressive? And so what we do is we show you various companies, you know, Fidelity, Invesco, Franklin Templeton, some of the big companies in the industry. We show you what products they have that will meet that goal that you want to achieve. And then once we get that fund, we get a prospectus and we see all the different companies that are involved in that mutual fund that you buying a piece of. And we show you, and if that's what you're interested in, we go for it. And then we have you put money in. And so what we do is this: you don't have to have a lot of money. Like we said one time, last time in our last session a month ago, you can start a mutual fund with as little as a pack. We call it a pack, which is a pre-authorized checking, with as little as $25. Now, this is what we do. But if you go to banks and so forth and say, I want to invest, a lot of times and so forth, you got to come to the table with, you got 50 grand, you got 100,000, you got whatever. A lot of times before they even think about, you know, talking and trying to get you to invest money, you have to have a large sum of money. We start with the middle America. We start with the little man, and we start with, you can do $25 and you can do a monthly pack, $25. And what we do is dollar cost averaging. And whatever fund that we get you in, according to your goals and according to the companies that you like, that's where you start. And so you buy a share or two or whatever, and then you do the same thing every month. And whether the stock is going up and down, it's not like I'm losing money, because what's happening when you buy and investing that money, say $50, say you're doing $50. And if the stock is going up, then you have fewer shares. But if the stock is going down, that $50 is buying more shares, because the stock is going to go back up again. So the more shares you have, the more money you end up in the long run. Does that make sense? So it's not about what's happening in the market and keeping up with all of that going on. The time that is in the market. Our motto is not the timing of the market, is the time in the market. That short term, 3 to 5 years, that long term, 15, 20 years down the line. Does that make sense? And then you buying the same amount of stocks depending on where that stock is in cost. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It depends on where you want to go with it and what you plan to do with it.
Okay. That's good. That's good.
Yes,
So what
ma'am.
else would you offer? What else would you share about with a person who wants to now, who has become either debt free or is willing to, you know, If it was like myself, somebody who's at baby step 6 and you're paying off the mortgage, but you still have extra money, what do you do?
Here you go. Put in as much as you can into your pensions and your 401ks, your 401ks, your 403bs for the medical arena and that kind of thing. Do the maximum because each of them is maximum, right? There's maximum in each one of them. Now, one
Mhm.
we didn't talk about that's huge and a lot of people talk about is the Roth IRA. Now,
Right.
here's the thing about the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is a nice vehicle to be in because if that account is open for 5 years, anything after 5 years, even the interest that it earned is tax free to you. You pay no taxes on the money. So with a Roth IRA, you can invest a certain amount, but there's a cap. IRS has a cap that you can do annual, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second. But then if it's open for 5 years and you want that in your long-term investment or whatever the case may be, or you got to be 59 and a half because it is a retirement fund. Roths are retirement funds. You got to be at 59 and a half before you get that 10% penalty if it's before 59 and a half, right? But everything it earns and everything you put in is tax-free money. That's the name of the game. You want to make sure that you're protecting your money so that you're not losing it and you're not paying a whole bunch of taxes on it either. You know, a lot of times with 457s and with 401ks and 403bs, those are tax deferred vehicles, meaning that once you start to take those monies out, you have to pay taxes on that money and on the growth. You see what I'm saying? But with the Roth, you eliminate that interest on the growth. Now, here's the thing about a Roth. The maximum you can put into a Roth annually is $6,000 for an individual under 50 and $7,000 for an individual over 50. That's the max. Okay, so when you look at that, here's where we're going to talk about investing early. If I can only do $6,000, that's the max the IRS will let you put in. Anything over that, they're going to penalize you, right? They're going to penalize you 6% in excess, right? Every year. So if I can only put $6,000, I need to start this early. I don't need to start this when I'm 50. I need to start this when I'm early. So if my maximum I can put in is 6,000 and is in a Roth and is in a vehicle that's making money, after 5 years and I get the 59 and a half, all that is interest free, tax free. It's tax free, not interest free, it's tax free money.
Wow.
And that's a big plus. But the key to it is starting it early, starting it now. Now that's the maximum. You can start off with a minimum of $50 a month. You know what I'm saying? You just got to start. And like Sherilyn said earlier, starting with any type of investment breeds discipline. It teaches you discipline. And once you have that discipline, it starts the process. You don't even miss it. And it's constantly going in there, and lo and behold, bam, you got a nice little sum of money and so forth and so on that you can work with and you can do some good things with. Does that make sense? So Roth IRA is a beautiful product. The thing is, you need to start early because there's only a maximum you can put into it each year.
So just say, because there are people like myself who are over 50 and who are just now hearing the message and they're just getting started, what happens to them?
Well, anything is better than in a savings account or a credit union account. Anything is better than that, right?
I'm saying, what if they want to do the Roth? What if they want to do the Roth and they're willing to pay the $7,000 every year?
Still do the Roth. They can still do the Roth. It
Right.
doesn't, but it's like you want a lot of money in your nest egg. I'm just saying you can start a Roth at any time. It's not that you don't want to start one at age 50, but again, remember that 5-year rule. Whatever it is, whatever you're putting into that Roth has to stay in there at least 5 years.
Right. So I'm saying, let's hypothetically right now, if a person is 50, say 54, okay, and their retirement age is 65, that's 11 years, right? So they put it in now at 54, right? So that's $7,000 for the next 11 years.
Correct.
So is that going to be a good investment for them?
Absolutely. because remember, it's being invested in the market. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be a good investment. Now, you may not have $500,000 in 11 years, but whatever you have is going to be way more. It's going to make way more than you would ever get in a savings account and a credit union account.
Right. And you also,
Still a good thing to do.
and you can keep doing it even after you retire.
Absolutely. 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 You can still keep putting into it, and you never know. You may not have to remove it. And that's another beauty thing of a Roth IRA. There are no minimum required distributions either. Like for 401k and IRAs and so forth, you got to start taking money out of it at a certain age. Now, last year, that age was 70. They've upped the age now, I think, to 72. That you have to start taking these minimum distribution pieces. But with a Roth, there is no, you don't have to take it out. You know what I mean? If you got a long lifespan and you're going to live a longer year, whatever the case may be, it can still grow. It could still, whatever, you can still put into it. You can take it out when you want to take it. After you 59 and a half, you can take it out when you want. But if you want it to grow with that compounding interest and you want it to get more money, you can keep putting in, and there's no minimum distribution you have to take out. You take it out when you want it. Mm-hmm. And if something, God forbid, happens and so forth and so on, goes right to your beneficiary, tax-free money.
That sounds good.
Sounds real good. That sounds real good. I'm just saying, because it's great for the young people. It's superb for the young people. But there are people who caught on late, like me.
Me too.
You know, and they have to have a place to be able to find, I have a retirement, but again, retirement and another investment is not going to hurt you.
No.
I have a question, Ms. Jeanette, to piggyback on what Ms. Shirlene is saying. So I worked with one of my colleagues yesterday, and she says she's been a nurse since 1974, before I was born. And I said, well, Ms. Linda, why are you still working? And she said, well, I don't have enough money to retire. And I said, do you have 401ks and IRAs? And she said, yes, but I don't have enough. How does a person know when they have enough? Like, what constitutes having enough money to retire? Like, how do you know if you have enough money? I guess is what my question is.
Okay, so what we help people do is come up with this we call it a FIN number, which is a financial independence number. What's that number? What's that figure you want to do? Well, a lot of times what happens in retirement, what people get derailed on is, one, they still have a lot of debt. And if we take the baby step 2, that will help a lot of people in retirement, because people still have a lot of debt, even when they're pushing retirement age. That's problem number 1. Because you cannot go into a retirement arena or a retirement period and have debt. That you don't want to do. But once you see what your obligations are, what are your liabilities, what are those debt items that you have, and look at your income that's coming in, and you look at where you are in age and what your life expectancy is. We look at all of that and say, you know, your life expectancy, according to your history of, your family history and that kind of thing, you're going to be here at 85. So if you stop at 65, you got 20 years of living to do, right? And so what happens for an individual who has savings accounts and credit union accounts or what have you, and their money's not making money, if I'm using, let's say I need $3,000 for, let's say I need $5,000 to make it simple. I need $5,000 a month to survive. That's 60 grand a year. If my money is not in a vehicle like a mutual fund that I'm talking about putting you in, that's going to continue to make money as long as the money is there, you're going to be out of money in 5 years. That's what she's talking about. If she's saying she don't have enough money in retirement, that's what she's looking at. Because her money is not growing. It's not in vehicles that's going to continue to grow, right? Even when she's got 20 more years of lifespan to live in retirement. Does that make sense? We put money in vehicles where you can have money in vehicles to where even if you're taking a certain percentage out to live off in retirement, that money is continuing to make money so that you don't deplete that pot, if that makes any sense. Does that help you, Letitia?
Yes, ma'am. It makes sense. I just felt bad for her. And then when Charlene was talking about, she want to make sure she has enough, and for the older people who have not gotten started early, just want to telling me this, and I just felt bad. I'm like, I don't want to be that way.
She may have a lot of debt also. We don't know. And some things might have happened. We don't know the whole picture. So
And she could have been paying off a whole lot of debt. There's so many different things that can happen, whatever. They just don't have the information. But see,
right.
See, this is where we help and educate people to where this is what your money can do. And we can show you how funds have happened to people and show you how people, there are scenarios where people have had, they had a lot of money. Let's say 500,000. Say they had 500,000 in a fund or a family of funds, and they're taking out $100,000 a year, let's say an income, and you're thinking, okay, if you got 500, you're taking out 100,000, you only got 400 left. But then by the end of the year, you got 520,000 in the account. You just took out 100. Well, how does that happen? Because the fund keeps going. The fund keeps going, and the compounding interest and so forth. So the money, it keeps making money, and it's replenishing the money that you're getting on the front end. Okay. But if you don't know about those types of vehicles, if that makes sense, you won't know that.
It makes a lot of sense.
There's a scripture, and that's what I was thinking about while you were saying that, and Letitia brought that up, there's a scripture in Haggai 1:6. It says, you harvest less than you plant. You never have enough to eat or drink, and your clothes don't keep you warm, and your wages are stored in bags full of gold. And so when we don't have wisdom to manage our living, and that's exactly what Letitia is saying about her coworker, I feel for those, because there are people, that work every day, work, and live paycheck to paycheck, and have an expectation that when I retire, it's going to be, all and done, but it's not. It's not. And here's the other poor part about that your mindset, if that is not aligned to what I call kingdom living, you're going to still have holes in your pocket, even when you live at less, because the Social Security is taxed. So you don't get what it says you're going to get because it is taxed, so you actually get even less than that. And that's not even what you made, all the years you've made money, and it's just, it's a sad place to be. And, I feel too. I feel for people. I do. I do. And that's why I wanted to do this with Chantel, because this is such a crucial place. And I just believe you can start anywhere.
You can.
You can.
You can start anywhere, but you have to start.
The time is now to start while you're young. If you're not young anymore, get started so you can have a savings, so you can live like you want to live and not be dependent on anybody, and not have
better than nothing.
Charlene, right. You spoke volumes, baby. Charlene, you spoke volumes just now. The time is now, Chantel, like you said. Start now. Don't keep putting it off, because it's only going, you know what I'm saying? It's not gonna get any better. So if you start now, it can get better. And let me tell you something else about that lady and so forth and so forth. And it is a heart-touching thing. Oh, she must have had to leave. But with the lady that Letitia was speaking of, once she retires from that organization, some organizations make you take your money. So they'll tell you, you had a 401k or you had a whatever, they make you take your money. But if you don't know what to do with that money, where are you going? You're going to a bank and you're going to put it in a savings. and you're going to get nothing for it, right? And then when you start having to have take that money out to survive and help you win your retirement, that money is not in a vehicle that's going to keep replenishing itself. We teach you how to roll that money over into an account, into a vehicle that will replenish and keep replenishing even when you're withdrawing from it.
Right.
Without our help, you won't know to do that. And the banks won't do that for you. They'll take that money and they'll say, well, we'll put it in a savings account for you, and they'll invest it in the economy, and they'll make 10, 12% on it and give you pennies on a dollar. And let me just put a little cherry on the top. I hope you understand this. When you have money in a savings account, in a credit union account, in a savings account, in a vehicle that's not making any interest and not making any money, not multiplying your money, you're actually losing money. Remember you talked about the holes in the bag, Charlene? Why is that a hole? Because guess what? Inflation happens every inflation happens at a rate of like say 3% every year. So if you're not making but 1% on your money and inflation is happening 3%, okay, do the math.
Right.
That means the value of that dollar you have holding it may sound good, but that value can't power today as it is going to have 5-10 years from now.
Absolutely.
So what I could buy with $100, now it's going to take me $150.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Sitting in a bank and a credit union, you only got maybe $103. You know what I'm saying? In that 5-10 years. And you see how you've lost money because you've lost buying power on your money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of thing that we help people put investments in. Now, there's nothing wrong. Hey, look, let's make sure you're properly protecting your income. Let's start there first. That's foundation first. Once you have that, then let's start talking about, okay, you got the 401s, you got the 457s, you got the 403Bs, you got all these other things, you know, IRAs, you got a traditional IRA, right? You got that going, right? And then let's put all those things together and let's say, okay, what can we do? Because the thing is annuities. We never even talked about annuities, but that's another vehicle that you can put your money in where you have income, specific income coming in or whatever in your retirement age or whatever the case may be. And then the pot may not never empty. You know what I'm saying? But you got to have large sums of money for that. You know what I mean? You take all your little funds together and you do something like an annuity or something when you get to that age and stuff. And we got companies, big time companies and stuff, you know, Axo, AIG, and we got all kinds of other companies that we partner with to get you into the vehicles that you need to benefit you and to meet your financial goals, short-term and long-term, if that makes sense.
So if a person retires, say they have the 457 or the IRA, what do you call it?
401k.
Right. And they retire and they want to now put all that money in the Roth and they've passed the 5 years. Could they do that and still take money out?
Okay, here's what you can't do. I think we talked about this last time. The 401k, the 403b, the 457s, and those accounts, those are deferred compensations accounts or whatever. You got a tax break because you weren't taxed on that money when that money was going in that account.
Right.
And so that account is going, that account is gaining interest. So when you get to retirement, IRS, you're gonna have to pay taxes on that money. You have to, because you didn't pay it while it was going in there and you didn't take it on any interest that it made. That was the deferred interest.
You pay taxes on the lump?
No, you pay taxes as you get it out.
Oh.
As you take it out, you're paying taxes on it. It's gonna be taxed.
Okay.
So you can't put monies that has to be taxed into a vehicle that's tax-free. Does that make sense? You can't put a 403b, which is tax deferred, into a Roth that's tax-free.
Okay. But let me ask you this question, okay? But wait, let me ask you this question. So could a person put the $7,000 max for the year over there Because if you take out 7,000, not the whole thing, but could you take out 7,000, you get taxed on it, and then put it over in the Roth? Could you do that?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. That's what I was about to say before you say, let me ask you. So what you can do though, because they're saying like you can take a traditional and put it into a Roth, but see, when you take it out, you're gonna get taxed at that point, and then you can put it in the Roth. Does that make sense? And then it can right. At some point, you're gonna pay taxes on the money. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Right, but you can do exactly what you said. Absolutely, absolutely.
That makes sense. That's good. That's good to know for my purposes. Thank you. Okay.
I didn't get a chance to tell my little story and stuff. I know I may have said something the last time or something or whatever, but I was one of those late boomers too, Charlene. I was one who, you know, coming out of college and so forth, I was just so excited. You know, my sister and I were the first in our family really to finish college, and you know, she was a year ahead of me and stuff, you know, whatever. And we were so excited to finish college, and so was my parents and stuff, you know. But my parents were all about work in the corporate America, work in the corporate America. You know what I mean? And so I had good job because I had a good degree in what have you and stuff. And I had this job, and the finance director said, you know, you're going to have to start saving for retirement because Social Security is not going to be enough for retirement when you retire. And you're going to need multiple streams of income. Well, what he didn't do, he didn't really explain that to me. Because in my mind, I thought I was pretty smart. I said, wait a minute, I'm paying FICA tax every pay period. And that little FICA tax is coming out, and I'm paying just as much as I'm paying federal taxes. You know, it's just a shy shorter than the federal taxes. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? No, he never really explained to me 30, 40 years from now what that Social Security was going to look like. Because back then, getting 2,000 and 3,000 in Social Security was good money.
Yeah.
But we look 40 years ago, that was pretty darn good, getting $3,000 a month. You understand? I was like, oh, wait a minute. If I'm taking this FICA tax that's coming out my money, and I'm putting all this money to FICA tax, which is paying other people's Social Security, I'm going to have enough to retire on. So I don't need additional. I don't need nothing else. And I didn't do nothing else. I was one of those people that you were like purses and stuff, you know, whatever. I just wanted to live good. So you were buying purses and I was living in apartments and furnishings and nice car. You understand? That's what I wanted to do. I was ready. You know what I'm saying? I was ready to do some things and look good. You understand? That's where I was.
Yeah.
And then when my sons got involved with the financial service business, even with this business, I still didn't understand because I thought I was so smart. You know, I had my masters, I had my stuff, you understand? I'm like, good salary. I'm like, what? Yeah, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Still didn't catch on. And even with my masters in business, we talked about finances. We talked about investments. We talked about those things. But in my mind, I thought that was for rich people. That was for people who had money. That's for people who had businesses. That wasn't for the lay person like me.
Right.
So I never really applied that kind of information to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when I started learning this business, I'm like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me I could have been doing this all this time? I could kick myself. What are you saying? What? But it wasn't explained to me back then.
Yeah.
All different things like we're talking about right now, like this forum is doing for people right now.
Yes. Yes.
And so my sole purpose is to help people. Don't be like me. If I can help you do better now so that you can be prepared, you know what I'm saying? And the Lord has blessed me tremendously. Let me tell you, I'm almost like you. I don't play with my tithes and offering. That I never played with for years. A meal before I not tithe. You understand? That was me. And that still is me. Yes. And the Lord has blessed me tremendously, Charlene. We are so blessed, but you know, there's more to be done. There's more to be done. We still should be blessings to others. You know what I'm saying? We still need to do more of those things. We still need that disposable income so we can do what we want. We can help people. We can help people in a time like another pandemic. We don't know if another pandemic is right around the corner. Who knows? This pandemic took the whole world by storm, didn't it? You understand? We don't know when the next one is coming or if one is going to come, and God forbid, but we don't know. So let's get prepared. Yeah. Let's get financially sound. You know what
Yeah.
I'm Let's do what we need to do now. Now, if you want a couple dollars, you want to play the penny stocks, or you want to play with the little Robinhood, you want to pay a little things, fine. But your solid financial house, you need to have it in something really solid, something that's really, that's going to really benefit you and going to grow your money like you need to. And play what you want to play with on the other side. You understand? You want to play with, if you want to watch that. But let's get that foundation together.
Landry Nettie Trinette, of course we know it's Trinette, said that you could also buy stock with Stockpile.
Stockpile, okay. There you go.
So
Yeah. I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this. I don't know if other people got it, but I got something today.
yes.
Last time I got something, and I got something again. And I am just, and I just think we should bring you back every quarter just to talk about like a reminder, people like, hey, what you doing?
What you doing?
And just to be able to do that. But while we're getting ready to wrap up, Chantel's going to wrap up. Why don't you share your information verbally? She's going to put that on the web as well. But why don't you share your information and how the people can contact you?
Absolutely. I was going to just say that, Shirley. You spoke it right. You look, like mine, girl, like mine, lady. Okay, so my email address is Jeanette Bloom, my whole first and last name. And let me get that spelling for you. It's JeanNenTeeBloom at gmail.com. That's my email. And I mean, I don't have a problem with giving my phone number too. If anybody just wants to just text or whatever. And just ask questions or want me to help them in any way that I can to get them going with income protection and also as well as financial vehicles and so forth to get that money multiplying. So that number is a 504-905-4668. I'm a Louisiana girl.
But it doesn't matter where you are.
No.
Right. From all over the world.
Right.
And they need help. So we're hoping that people will
Reach
hear
out.
and listen to this, and because we'll be out on YouTube as well.
Yes.
And they hear the after show, they'll hear this later. And when they hear this, they'll know that they can reach you at any time. And what's the name of your business again as well?
PFS.
BFS.
P is in Paul.
P is in Paul.
Okay. PFS. Okay. Awesome.
Right.
Chantel?
So as we wrap up, just wanted to tell y'all, look for us on Facebook and YouTube. Go to YouTube, like and subscribe. But me and Charlene will be back next month. May is Stroke Awareness Month. And so we will be talking to stroke survivors. So join us on Facebook and YouTube, and we will see you next month. Anything else, Charlene?
No, I'm just lapping in the fact that I enjoyed all this golden information
Yes, ma'am. It was good. It was good, as always.
as well.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, for having me.
No problem. We enjoyed you.
When you need me.
Your pleasure.
Thank you.
Golden. Yola Golden. Thank you.
Y'all have a